What's popping, my guys? News just getting in at K.JAYtrends. And before we get to the news, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We said we're on a road to 1,000 subscribers, and I know we will get there. And peace. Now, news getting in. Now, Iran says it is in talks with Oman, but not the US, after Trump says negotiations to resume today on a Monday. Now, Iran says it is negotiating with Oman to reach an understanding over the temporary route through the Strait of Hormuz to allow commercial shipping to resume. The statement came after US President Donald Trump said new talks on ending the war in Iran would begin on Monday, and that he had called off massive strikes on the country for this purpose. Now, Trump did not specify who would take part in the talks. Now, Iran, however, said it was not negotiating with the US and had no plans to do so. Now, Tehran denied appeals to have enlarged the US president, who later wrote on his Truth social media platform that Iran's leadership was unbelievably duplicitous. Now they asked for a meeting. Some would say beg, talks begin with more scheduled in the immediate future, and then they say openly and proudly that they are not having any discussions. Nothing is being talked about. They are only dealing with Oman, Trump wrote. Now, at the weekend, Trump had said the perimeters of a deal had been agreed and would include reopening of Hormuz, the vital waterway whose closed by Iran has sent oil prices soaring. Now, Tehran has repeatedly closed off the strait since the US and the Israelites started attacking the country in February. We all know there have been attacks in Iran since February. But Trump insisted on Monday that the strait was controlled by the US and no ships will be allowed to reach Iran unless a deal or total surrender is accomplished. Wow. Now, speaking on board Air Force One on Sunday, he said Iran knew the extent of the planned US strikes because they saw it forming, adding they were talking to them in form of a negotiation. It begins tomorrow afternoon. Now, Trump declined the outline, a deadline for a deal to be struck with Tehran, adding, we all just see how it is. We are ready to go anytime we want. I am not looking to kill people. Now, Trump added that the Saudi Arabia's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman, as well as US partners such as the United Arab Emirates and Qatar, had urged him against conducting strikes all over the weekend. We all set to go, Trump said. The reason they asked is that they think there's a deal. He said there's a deal on Hormuz and there will be a deal on the nuclear. Now, global oil prices fell on Monday morning in Asia, trading after Trump announcement. Well, that was nice. Brent crude oil was down by 4.5% at $83.98, which is equivalent to 62.26 pounds, while US traded oil was up at 4.6% lower at $80.74, which is equivalent to 59.85 pounds. Now, energy prices have fluctuated since the conflict started on 28 February as traders reacted to distributions of shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, around 20% of the world cruise oil are liquefied natural gas, LNG, usually flows through the strait. Now, vessel tracking data from the trade intelligence company KPLAR suggests commercial shippings through the straits have slowed. Now, according to the data, 51 vessels crossing occurred through the strait between 30th of July and 2nd of August. This is a drop of around 28% compared to the previous 4 days in which 71 crossings were recorded through the straits. Now, talks to the end of the conflict, mostly facilitated by the mediators, collapsed last month, ending a ceasefire agreed in April. Now, Trump has repeatedly vowed that a negotiated end of the war is near, only for tit-for-tat strikes to resume. Back on 7th of April, the US president warned that a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran refused to engage in peace talks. Now, the threat did result into a historic face-to-face talks in Pakistan, led to the Vice President J.D. Vance. However, those negotiations did not result in any deal. The Trump administration has also been largely dismissive of data showing the war and its economic impact are broadly unpopular with Americans, including with many Republicans. Now, polls showing widespread dissatisfaction with the handling of the war have promoted alarm among some controversial strategies ahead of the coming November midterm.